Hi, I'm Kyle Lady. I'm a R&D engineer at Duo Security, and I'm joined here today by Trevor and Zach. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Well, we are both corporate security analysts here at Duo Security.
So we're here today to talk about the Google Docs phishing that exploded the internet yesterday. I'm sure almost everybody on the stream got at least one. I'm pretty sure I got 4 or 5. So we wanted to answer some questions, explain what went on in terms that are accessible, so that you can walk away with a better understanding of what actually happened. So to start us off, what happened?
So yesterday, a person calling themselves Eugene Popov sent out an OAuth email worm phish that quickly went viral.
Okay, so phishing is an everyday occurrence. We get phishes all the time. But what's OAuth?
So OAuth essentially allows third-party applications to access a user's various services without actually needing their credentials. This works by the application asking for your permission to do whatever is listed in the OAuth consent screen. Just asks for permission for these certain scopes, and then once you approve them, then the app has access to those scopes for those services.
So what would be an example of a scope for a Google account?
Like the one in this phish, the Gmail scope. Basically, it's just the mail.google.com scope. It allows the app to basically do whatever they want with the user's email.
Okay. So this could be useful and is useful in a lot of applications, but
Sure.
in this case was used maliciously. So how does an OAuth phish work?
In this case, the attacker sent out a email to, I presume, probably a couple hundred people, basically just saying the content of the email being, hey, I've shared a document with you, and then there's a button that says open in Docs. When you click on this button, the user is shown a Google OAuth consent screen that says Google Docs would like to read, send, delete, and manage your email, and also manage your contacts. The user is like, okay, well, I clicked on a Google Doc button, and it's Google Docs wanting to do this stuff, so this seems legitimate. I've seen these screens before. They're tricked into clicking allow. They've, at this point, allowed the attacker's application to, in this case, read the victim's contact list and then replicate that email from the person's account, sending the phish out to all of the victim's contacts.
So this spread as fast as some of the old school worms like Morris and a lot of the classic worms on the internet. How did this get so far so quickly?
Just because of the nature of, when the victim accidentally approves this app, these people have lots of hopefully they have lots of contacts because they're very popular people, and then when the app sends the email from their account to their hundreds or thousands of contacts from their account, those recipients see the email coming from somebody they presumably know, so they trust the email. When they click on it, everything is very unassuming. Google Docs would like to access your Google account. It seems legit. There's not a lot of red flags in this phish, and so because it's sort of just branching out, one person authorizes it, then it's sent out to hundreds of people, then presumably like a dozen of those people accept the authorization, and then it sends it out to more and more and more. It just grows exponentially.
And I think part of this particular phish, one of the reasons it spread so quickly is it's assumed that they started with media. So BuzzFeed, USA Today, I think, they were all hit by it. And when it gets through a media organization and gets up to their PR people, that goes out to their entire list of contacts. These PR people for news outlets have, like I said, thousands upon thousands of contacts.
And if I get an email from a PR person at CNN or BuzzFeed or the New York Times, that's a very it's an exciting email if you work in PR. And so whether this was intentional to start with media or not, it seems to be how it exploded so fast.
Right. If one more comment on that as well, since the emails are all legitimately coming from these victims' accounts, there is no email spoofing at all. So everything passes all of the SPF, DKIM. It all passes the email security checks. So email IDSs that check for those things, this just bypasses all of that.
So you mentioned DKIM and SPF. What are those, and how do they help with phishing in general?
Basically, DKIM and SPF, they're just ways to protect an email domain from having its email spoofed by somebody else. If they don't have these records set up, if somebody doesn't have, an admin doesn't have these records set up, then basically it's the Wild West. Anyone could pretend to send email as you, and there's no way for the recipient to know if it's actually you or not.
So on that, you mentioned that there weren't a lot of red flags. Trevor, what red flags were there that a user could have noticed?
Right. So at least here at Duo, we train for this a lot. Not this particular type of fish so much as just fishing in general. So one of the I shouldn't say nice things, but the actual landing page for the email that you saw that said open in Docs is slightly different from the legitimate Google Docs share request basically. And
so
that tipped off a lot of our users.
How is it different?
It was sent as basically just a independent button, and the actual Google Docs is more of a framed in.
Okay.
Panel.
And
yeah.
Also the two line looked different.
Correct. Yeah. So the two line was all of them were set up to send to 10hs@mailinator.com.
A suspicious
It's
address.
pretty suspicious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question about OAuth from YouTube. I'm curious if it's possible to whitelist OAuth apps or otherwise restrict what people can give access to.
Unfortunately, as far as we know, there's no way to actually restrict OAuth access to a list of your users. But there are ways to audit them, the access, using APIs, Google APIs.
So you could go in and look, as an admin, look at what applications your users had authorized.
Right. So, So you can list all of the apps that your users have authorized, and you can do sort of pseudo whitelisting where if they're not part of your approved list, then you can just keep revoking them. But there's no way to keep somebody from authorizing it in the first place.
So what's the best way to evaluate these? Because this said Google Docs, and as an admin, if I'm looking at a list of applications, Google Docs looks pretty legit. So how would you go about actually determining whether to allow it or not?
So Google Docs, that's the OAuth token's display text in this case, and it actually should be a red flag because Google shouldn't need any additional permission to your Google account. They already have access to all this stuff. So Google, there should be no Google anything in the display text. Basically, as an admin, you could look at the scopes that the application's wanting. If it's trying to get full account access, or if it's like a clock app that wants access to your email or your or view documents in your Google Drive, then these things those are suspicious scopes for the what the app is actually wanting to do. And basically any mismatch in that, scopes that make you feel icky, generally those are good red flags for an admin.
I think it's also important to note that users can also see these if they go to, I think it's myaccount.google.com/permissions,
Right.
or similar. So you can go through and look at all of the apps that you basically given permission to, and you can look in there and see if maybe there's something you missed before something like this blew up. You might have an app in there that you don't really know about. Why did I give this app permissions?
Okay. So this is another question from YouTube. This is more of a worm than a fish. So, but the internet community has called it a phishing attack. What makes it, in your opinion, phishing?
You are not phishing for credentials here. You're phishing for the authorization. I believe it to be a worm and a fish. It's a fish that turns into a worm. It's I don't know. I mean, it's sort of unique.
A
too.
traditional worm would infect a computer automatically. In
Right.
this case,
It requires
to trick the user into clicking it. So the user is part of the worm's propagation process.
Right. The worm does the phishing. Right.
Okay. So how can users protect themselves in the future?
Without really knowing exactly what Google will be doing to help users protect themselves from this, right now what a user can do is on the OAuth consent screen. Basically, hey, can you bring up that real quick? Yeah. So basically, the OAuth consent screen looks a lot like the name of the app would like to, and then it lists the permissions that it would like to do. If you're not sure exactly what the permissions are doing or what you're allowing the app to do, there's a little, what would that be called? Like a little
Like an information
button next to it. You can click on it and it'll go into a little more detail what exactly those permissions do. Another thing you can kind of do to help protect yourself, if you click on the name of the application, in this case Google Docs, then it'll give you a little more information as to the what's going on there. It'll give you the developer email, if that looks suspicious at all or if it doesn't make any sense. In this case, an official Google application wouldn't have a developer email of eugene.popov@gmail.com. It would probably be more legitimate than that.
Like at google.com.
At google.com, sure. And it'll also tell you the OAuth's redirect URI. It'll tell you where your app is going to go after clicking allow. So in this case, if you click on the Google Docs fish, if you click on allow, it goes to googledocs.gdocs.download, which is certainly not legitimate.
So I recall seeing that what ended up on that screen was a bunch of spamware, like ads. After you authorized and gave away permission to your account, they then, to add insult to injury, dropped you off at a page with a bunch of spam ads. So that got taken down pretty quickly. Can you guys go into what happened there and how the various companies responded?
Yeah, I think Cloudflare had all these domains down within like 15 minutes. So the actual threat was more or less mitigated by that point. Google took action, I think, after an hour or something, or were able to take action to actually take down the application itself. But the threat itself was mitigated by Cloudflare like within 15 minutes. That didn't,
Excellent.
however, like stop it from spreading like wildfire.
Right, it still spread, it just couldn't really do anything. So this has been talking a lot about from the perspective of users. From the perspective of admins of a security team, what's an ideal response process? Do you find value in phishing attacks like this to be a good neighbor and contact the security teams at other companies?
I think a lot of it is, yes, I mean, priority is to secure yourself first through internal communications as well as different mitigations. Like we got the email removed from our employees' inboxes pretty quickly. Also sent out internal communications to our entire company, letting them know that this was a thing, that they can't be touching on it. Also, social media, I think our Duo Twitter accounts, both Labs and Regular, had sent out something regarding it pretty immediately.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen with various vulnerabilities getting contacted by other companies saying, just wanted to let you know this is a problem.
Right.
And usually that's helpful. So another question from YouTube, is the source of the attack, like the source code, being shared?
I know that it's been making its rounds. We haven't shared it.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
If you search Twitter, I'm pretty sure you can find a link to a paste bin. It's probably up there.
But yeah, there's nothing special in there anyway.
Okay, so with regards to the success of phishing attacks in general, we have an internal tool, or we've made it available now, Duo Insight, to do some automated phishing of your users for education. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about how we use that and what the results as a whole are?
Yeah, for sure. So we send out internal phishing campaigns quite a bit to our employees, like I touched on earlier, to, like I said, train them to look out for things that are suspicious, things that they shouldn't be getting. Learning to hover links, find things that look like, that's not the email, or that's not where you're supposed to be directing me to. Maybe a login page looks a little different. That's something that we get a lot of value out internally. Like in this particular case, we got a lot of value out of it. We had people reporting the fish to us immediately, kind of thinking it was us, messing with them. So obviously this was a little more nefarious than our internal things.
Yeah.
But
so what kind of success rates do we see as a whole with the Duo Insight tool? Just to get a sense of how often people actually click on things in phishing campaigns.
So not necessarily internally, but through our entire tool with everybody that uses it. We've had it sent to around 80,000 people, 3,600 campaigns. As a general rule, 44% of recipients click on the email, basically open it up. Of those people, 25 click the open this document or whatever our, nefarious link button is. And then 13% of people that receive this email enter credentials. And most of our campaigns will capture at least, one person's credentials. So phishing is an issue. It's something that needs to be trained for. And we're hoping that something like Insight or whatever you want to use for training internally is something that more companies do.
So Insight is great for testing, for evaluating. For admins out there, what options are there for educating your users in the first place? Because you have to train them before you test them.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to, I don't know if we have the link to it. Can we get that for the phishing? What's the organization?
The Anti-Phishing Working Group?
Yeah, Anti-Phishing Working Group. If you Google that, you can get, all sorts of basically education materials that you can send out to, anyone internally, externally, you're just trying to educate. There's a lot of really beneficial information in there.
So, a question here about the specifics of OAuth. A question from YouTube: Is this an issue with OAuth in general, with the Google implementation?
It's, I think that I view it as a sort of just a shortfall of OAuth in general. The way that Google does it really is no different than the way that Facebook does it and everyone else. It's just difficult to, when there's no credentials involved, it's difficult to safely just ask for permission to various parts of your account without the user, without giving the user a lot of information to go, to be able to validate whether the application is malicious or not,
And one of the benefits of OAuth is that it's open. That's, I believe, what the O is. And it's not like an app store situation where anyone approves it. Anyone can just go in and make an OAuth application. And so it's much easier to get an app out there. It's much easier to integrate with a different service. But it has this trade-off of there's nobody policing what a given OAuth what a given OAuth service can does with your information. So, do you guys have any ideas about how to set up alerts for things like OAuth grants?
I know that there's a couple tools out there that don't look at just Google Logs, but look at the actual users' tokens, authorized tokens. I know you can roll your own. The APIs are out there. I don't believe that those are delayed because it's not a log. It's part of the actual user's authorizations. So I know that you can just list those and set up your alerts for that, or use one of the tools that's out there.
Excellent. Looks like we have another question from YouTube coming in. Do you know what's possible to investigate in incidents like this? Can you identify if emails were exfiltrated or if contacts were siphoned out of the account?
Well, I think in most of these cases with OAuth phishing, you're going to have access to the source because I believe that most of this has to be done through JavaScript because of the OAuth callback. And you would just have to, not a lot of users can do that, or admins might have the manpower to do this, but you just have to look through there. I know in this case, the source wasn't very long for this one, and you can sort of clearly see what happens, which was just grabs all the contacts, sends an email. And you can tell that nothing more malicious was done, pulling all of the user's email. That the scopes allowed for that, but it didn't happen according to the source. So you would just have to look through the source.
Okay. Just want to remind everyone, please send us questions. We're on Twitter at duo_labs, as well as, of course, drop questions in the YouTube chat. And so I wanted to ask you guys, we just discussed how this attack didn't steal emails. What do you think the point was? Why did this happen?
My own opinion is that whoever this was either trying to make a point or just do this for educational purposes. There was nothing, or even just simply make cash off of the ad page, which I'm sure they made plenty of. But there were worse things that somebody could do with the scopes that were authorized, but they didn't decide to do that, and because of that, I think that, and what with the Google Analytics portion on there too.
What exactly? How is Google Analytics involved?
At the very end of the script, they were just, I don't actually remember what exactly was part of that, but they were just logging information with Google Analytics. I think that That was just getting hits, page hits.
Yeah, probably click through numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just, I think that this was for educational reasons,
Or just someone trolling.
or
No
somebody
one-
trolling. Yeah.
We certainly are aware that there are lots of trolls on the internet. Okay, so let's see. So, sorry, we're getting another question in. We talked briefly about how to remediate
Right.
by going into account settings and permissions. Could this attacker have done anything else to like embed themselves in your account or set up other settings to, for example, set up mail filters?
Right. So technically, they do have full access. In this case, they would the attacker would have full access to your email account and contacts. So if they wanted to, they could have just, if they were trying to dox a company or something, they could have all of these contacts, or they could grab all of your email, and they could change your email settings to maybe forward high-profile users' emails straight to the attacker. In this case, looking at the source code, none of that happened. But if a user wanted to check, they could go in and make sure that none of their settings are changed in their Gmail accounts.
And specifically settings that they'd want to look at. We talked about apps, like authorized apps, as well as mail filters.
Right.
Is there anything else, or are those really the two big ones?
I believe in this case with these scopes, those would be the big ones.
They could have exported all mail that you've gotten in your inbox as well, but we also don't think that happened.
So in your guys' experience, is OAuth phishing, is this common? Was this a novel attack?
It's been around for a while now. This is probably the most high profile one that we've seen so far, but it's definitely not the most common type of phishing that we get or that we see. It's around, but not a lot of people do it.
Do you think we'll see more of it after this?
I'd say probably. I think this was probably an eye-opener to a lot of users, admins, as well as, people who are trying to, figure out a new way to phish people, maybe that they haven't seen before. And I think this is a way that you can do that without needing credentials. People are, more or less trained to not give credentials out as much as they used to. But this one doesn't require that, right? It only requires a click requesting permissions. So.
Right.
Kyle, can you speak to that question?
Yes, there was a comment in YouTube. There was a Twitter account that was started that claimed that it was a grad school research project that went wrong, and it's whether that's true or not isn't entirely obvious. A couple of websites posted articles that argued that account was attention-seeking, that it wasn't actually the person who released it. One of the big giveaways was that they used they used someone's profile picture from some other service. The authors of the articles used Google image search to reverse image search it to see where else that profile picture showed up. They said, hey, this is the same profile picture as Bob over here. Are you Bob? And then this account in question immediately changed their profile picture. So it's not conclusive, but that seems kind of shady. Probably not something that if that account were legitimate would actually happen. So it's unclear, and I don't think anyone otherwise has claimed responsibility. I'm sure Google either knows or is getting to the bottom of it, but that's not necessarily something that
Right.
you would go and then publicize if you were Google.
Mhm.
So, do you guys have any general phishing advice, or I guess anti-phishing advice? What do users fall for the most? Right, like if you had to tell a user to like check one thing in an email, what would it be?
Well, previously those tips would kind of go out the door with OAuth phishing, because you can't always hope that the email you're receiving the sender is somebody that you can trust now, because it could be them being the victim as well. Trevor, do you have
Yeah, I still think there's some value to, like, when you actually receive the phishing email, whether it's OAuth or regular credential seeking phishing. I think, like, in this one especially, it was pretty clear, at least to me, having made phishing emails before, having received them, a to address of a bunch of H's at mailinator.com. That's a red flag to me.
But if there's one thing for me, I would say hovering the link. In this case, I mean, it was the
Looking at the developer too.
the link, the open in docs link. That's gonna send it. I mean, if you're expecting it to send you to Google, like docs.google.com
Right.
or drive.google.com, it'll have a google.com domain, not a gdoc.download domain. So making sure that the links are actually going where you think they're gonna go, that is huge.
I think there's a lot of value also if you, if you look at something and it just doesn't feel right, don't go there. If it's someone legit, you can reach out to them, off that interaction, that particular email stream, and you can ask them, hey, can you send this to me in a different format? I don't feel comfortable doing this. And chances are they'll be okay with that. Or you can get them on the phone and make sure it's legit.
Yeah.
All right. And we are a G Suite company here, and being on the CorpSec team, I think we're planning on writing another blog post, giving any other G Suite admins a little tips and tricks on how to maybe remediate or defend themselves against something like this. And if you follow our Twitter, then you can check that out in the near future.
DuoSec is our main account. Duo_labs is where we tweet memes and security heckling. As well, we published in detail a blog post from Jordan Wright, one of our other R&D engineers, and that went live this morning.
It's called Gmail OAuth phishing goes viral.
Yep, and that's at duo.com/blog. It's a great write-up, and if Jordan's on the stream, thanks for getting that out so quickly. It's really easy to understand write-up. So we're at the 30-minute mark. Any other questions from our viewers? These have been great questions so far.
Yeah.
We can also follow up afterward via Twitter, and whether you tweet at DuoSec or Duo Labs with any comments or questions, we'd be glad to we'd be glad to continue the conversation further. So before we wrap up, wanted to point out again, thanks to Cloudflare for shutting down the domains so quickly. That stopped it from being as big of a problem as it could have been. Of course, thanks to Google for shutting down the whole OAuth application itself. Overall, the internet reacted pretty quickly. It just kind of, there were these echoes that were still bouncing around. So with that, we'll wrap up. I wanted to say thank you to these two guys, and thank you to all the viewers for tuning in. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Much appreciated.